Hello, everybody. My name is Tamara Barber, and I am a senior analyst at a company called Forrester Research. I'm based in Cambridge in the United States, and I am here to talk with you today about what we at Forrester call market research online communities, or MROCs. My area of focus here at Forrester, broadly speaking, is around how the industry of market research is changing and how the function of market research is changing. And one of my specific coverage areas is around social media and social tools for market research, hence why I'm here today talking about communities. So the title of my presentation is We Came Up with the Term MROC, Now We're Telling You What It Is. As you'll see, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's also going to be forward-looking, talking about where the use of MROCs is going, and giving you a little bit of a sneak peek into a piece of research of mine that will hopefully be coming out at the very beginning of January. So without further ado, see if we can move on to the next slide here. At the end of the day, what I see happening is that market research online communities, or MROCs, are here to stay. They are something that market research suppliers are starting to make money off of. They are something that on the client side, we find clients are either, if they're not already using, are very interested in using, but only the most strategic will survive. Not only on the client side, where only the most strategic communities that can really prove a return on investment will survive, but also from the supplier side. So the more strategic that you can be with these communities and move them up the value chain, so to speak, the more likely they are to retain their budget year over year with their clients. So first, why the catchy title? Well, we at Forrester have been covering market research online communities for over 2 years now. The term itself is actually something that was coined by another analyst here at Forrester. And sometime last summer, actually conveniently, right as I was ready to go on maternity leave, I had to turn my brain back on because there was a debate that was brewing online between those of us in the industry who are on Twitter or in certain LinkedIn groups or follow certain blogs. There started to be a debate around what these kinds of communities should actually be called in a way that they're actually going to be meaningful to clients. We had a certain contingent of people who wanted them to be called Insights Community or Online Insights Community or Community Insights. There were a couple people who said, well, before I call this a market research online community, I would call it an innovation community because that's what I do within these communities with my clients. And then there were others who said, you know, I would give it a completely different name, and I call them things like online insight villages and online knowing festivals or think boxes or idea spaces, and we're really giving them more creative names. And this debate, again, for those of you who didn't follow it, got so far so as to have people actually create models around the different types of online research communities. This is a graphic by Jeffrey Henning of Vovisi, who really wanted to show that there is a spectrum of communities when we talk about them in the market research context. And my favorite of all is that the debate actually made it onto a meme contest that was being hosted on Tom Anderson's Next Gen Market Research blog, talking about the sentiment that some in the market had around the fact that the term MROC really reminded them instead of the Flintstones and Bedrock. You know, if nothing else, this, you know, really, I think, highlights the fact that there are a lot of people, especially on the supplier side, who are interested in communities for research. It's certainly a lively area where we see a lot of potential for development of business. And the one thing is, I think at the end of the day, none of us would disagree that regardless of what it's called, what's most important is what's actually done with them and what's actually done inside them. So from a Forrester perspective, we're going to keep calling them MROCs. It's something that we've been calling them for a while. We hear our clients using the term. We hear suppliers using the term. And it certainly works for now, which doesn't mean it's not something that might shift later. But having said that, in terms of how this fits into where we see things going at Forrester, we actually see three main trends in social market research, and this is something that I've published on recently. The first trend is around accessing, which is essentially using social networks as a source of sample, and then recruiting people from social networks to do more traditional research exercises. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see listening, which is the practice of researchers using listening platforms and sentiment and text analysis tools to aggregate and analyze conversations on the open web. And then on the upper right-hand part of your screen is embracing, which is where MROCs really fit in. And this is the practice of using social tools, either one-off, like blogs, or live chats, or ratings and reviews, say in ideation exercises, discussions, or using all of these kinds of tools in one particular place, like a community, to engage with your consumers and your customers. And really, what for me sets a community apart from something like a panel is that a community really has a qualitative component to it, where you're not only having one-way feedback, where you might be asking questions to members and getting responses back, but you're also, as a researcher or a moderator, actually engaging in conversations and helping move ideas and conversation forward. But then on top of that, you're actually not only allowing, but frankly encouraging members of the community to start conversations on their own. Because frankly, in terms of what I've heard from clients, these kinds of unexpected, unmoderated conversations are where you can actually start to find insights and nuggets of information that you might not have gotten otherwise. So MROCs really fit into the embracing category because they're a way to really truly embrace the voice of the consumer or the voice of the customer and help feed that into other research or product or message development. And in terms of what the official definition is, a market research online community is a captive, interactive group of people online who are joined together by a common interest and systematically harvested for market research purposes over time. So the important points here are the ones that I've highlighted. First of all, it's a place that's private, it's captive. There's a common interest, so of course, what binds people together within a community is a common interest or passion and the reason why they're coming together to talk about certain topics. It's something that is, in an ideal case, really used systematically as part of an actual process, a research process, a product development process, or what have you, and is used over time. So it's something that really differs from an online focus group or a traditional focus group in the sense that it's iterative and it's something that you can actually build on over a certain time period, be it a number of weeks, a number of months, or even a number of years. So hopefully this gives you a good idea around how Forrester actually views the term MROC and the use of communities in general for market research purposes. But what I've really been focusing on over the past couple of months is what's next in this space. At the time that we started looking at this, market research online communities were really in their infancy. There were a couple of vendors who were really doing these kinds of activities in a large scale, and it was something that there was frankly quite a bit of skepticism over on the client side. But I'm happy to say that we really have gotten to a place where market research online communities have really come of age, and they're much more of a reality now than hype. But there are three main ways in which I really see this market evolving over the next 12 to 24 months, and three ways that I think are going to be especially meaningful for market research suppliers who want to start providing these kinds of services to their clients. So first, the size debate around what makes a community is going to go away. For the longest time, especially when I was starting to cover this space, there was a lot of debate around what makes a community, and is it something that is bounded by size? Is it 50 people or 250 people or 1,000 people or more? And that debate really over the years hasn't added too much value or really too much new thinking around, around best practices and how to manage a community. So I think the industry is really shifting now to focus on engagement, and something that, engagement can actually be used to measure the health of the community, but also to determine the kind of community solution that might make sense for a company. So I really believe that there is a whole spectrum of different kinds of communities. Sometimes they're just for qualitative. Sometimes they're used for qualitative and, quantitative types of exercises. And certainly the type of engagement model and the type of engagement metrics that you're going to have if you're a smaller community versus a larger community are going to be really different. So as suppliers, I think it's imperative to actually be able to explain to your clients any one of these solutions from a size standpoint is a fair solution. But depending on the type of investment that you want to make, the kinds of activities that you want to do, and the purpose that you want this community to serve, the engagement is going to look very different. And clients need to understand that and plan for that and be okay with that. So I think we're going to shift from talking about size to instead talking about engagement when we're looking at what really makes a community and what the different communities really are all about. Second, communities are going to become mobile, and although we in market research consider communities social, they're only going to become more so. So first, on the mobile front, with smartphones and the rise of the mobile web, the data is pretty much irrefutable that a growing number of consumers are using their phones to connect with social networks and connect in the moment. So as a result, consumers are coming to expect a mobile component to many more of the activities that they used to do online through a PC. And for researchers, this means not only the growth of mobile surveys, but also the growth of mobile applications for qualitative research and for the kinds of activities that you might see happening in a community. So that you have either an optimized mobile web experience or an actual app through which a member of the community can do the exact same kinds of activities that they would do in their PC. They can instead do these on their phone. And, the results from these kinds of activities might not be as long in terms of the number of characters or the number of paragraphs that you might get, but they're going to be in the moment. They're going to be pieces of feedback that are going to be triggered by what they see, what they hear, and triggered by their actual reactions in the moment. And that is something that is becoming ever more valuable for us to have as market researchers. And then on the social side, when I've spoken to suppliers over the past couple of years, I've certainly heard them saying that, sure, we do exercises on Twitter if we want to be able to have, some sort of dynamic conversation outside of the community, or, we might allow people to connect to Facebook, or we have a Facebook widget. But over the next 12 months, we are going to see more providers coming to the table with ways to interact with the community actually within the Facebook environment or within the MySpace environment. So for members, this allows them to actually engage without having to leave some of the places that they already visit and spend a lot of their time online. And I actually see that for suppliers and for market researchers on the client side, it's going to open up some new possibilities for them to either engage with friends of their members that they have in the online community, to perhaps recruit from Facebook pages or from MySpace pages or other social network pages. And for those clients who are really open to it, it's going to allow them a way to actually share some of the things that are happening within their community to the broader social network audience. And this is something that some vendors have actually been doing and making available to their clients for about a year now. So overall, communities are going to become mobile and social, and frankly, the mobile piece is going to become the price of entry into the MROC space. So this is something that we expect to see, virtually all of the big providers having some sort of capability around. Last but not least, we see communities becoming engaged earlier in the business planning process. So in this age, post-recession, when our budgets might be getting bigger, but we are still being looked to provide return on investment. We found that as market researchers on the client side start to get more comfortable with what an online community can provide, they still start off using these types of resources as a way to get fast turnaround reads on their customers or on relevant trends. But they're actually starting to be inserted earlier in the research process. So not only do we have a growing body of best practices as researchers really test the limits of their communities, but things like new product development, concept testing, co-creation, these are the kinds of activities that can actually yield a much more tangible ROI. So if you think about really wanting to put a return on your investment or return on your insights, and you think about the kinds of things that can happen within a community where you can lean on a community for testing new products or ideation or co-creating products over a certain period of time, and then launch that into the marketplace, and hopefully it's something that's successful. It's very, very powerful to be able to say, our community helped power that innovation and that product that's being so successful on the market. So it's a very tangible way to tie ROI back to the kinds of activities that are happening in market research. And I think there are two things happening here. On the supplier side, there's this recognition that insights happen throughout different parts of the company, and they're looking to go after people who might work in the new product development groups or in R&D. And this dynamic actually provides an opportunity for market researchers who want to become more strategic and have more of a voice at the company to actually collaborate with people in these departments as well and really show the true power of what something like a market research online community can do. So in terms of the three trends, again, size as a point of debate is going to go away. Engagement is going to be the new metric. These communities are going to go mobile and get even more social, and they're going to become something that are going to be a real driver of ROI. And frankly, those communities that can't really show that are going to become, viewed as less strategic and something that can be cut when budgets get tight. So the bottom line here is that at the end of the day, regardless of what you call them, market research online communities are evolving, and we expect them to continue to evolve, especially as new technologies come about and new vendors come up with new ways to use these kinds of communities for creative purposes. I hope you found this useful. As I said, this report will have more information, and with that, I will open it up to questions with myself and with Annie.